Welcome to What Works, the podcast where nonprofit leaders share real stories about what makes impact possible and their organizations thrive. Because success has patterns, and oftentimes the best secrets aren't found in the boardroom. They're actually found in the field or when you're just talking over coffee. I'm your host, Marla Moody, and today we're going to dive into finishing well and having a heart of leadership development. My guest is Scott Sabin, Executive Director of Plant with Purpose, a global nonprofit headquartered in San Diego. For more than 2 decades, Scott has helped communities around the world break cycles of poverty and environmental decline by equipping local leaders to thrive. He brings a unique perspective on how to develop leaders at every level, which creates lasting change for both the organization and for the people they serve. If you've ever wondered how to lead with both heart and vision, this conversation is for you. So get ready. Scott is here to tell us and show us what works. Scott, welcome.
Thank you
It's
very much.
good to be with you. So please, introduce yourself and give a little bit of vision for Plant with Purpose, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, Plant with Purpose has been around for 40 years. I've actually been a part of it for 33, actually 34 if you can count my volunteer time. And we work around the world in places where extreme poverty and environmental degradation intersect. And there are so many places around the world where that's true. Probably one of the most classic examples that a lot of Americans are familiar with is Haiti, where the forests have been cut and a huge percentage of the population survives farming steep, eroded hillsides that have relatively little ability to hold water or to nurture crops or anything else. And we've found that we can work alongside them to not only restore their land, but improve their livelihoods at the same time. So that's what we do. We are involved in reforestation. We're active in 9 countries. And like I say, I've been part of this for 33 years now.
Wow. I'm sure that comes with a lot of challenges. Is there a story, though, that kind of would help us have a vision of, something, leaving a society better than when you came in? Hate to call you on the spot, but do you have a favorite story that comes to mind?
Well, lots of them come to mind, as you might imagine. But one of the most important things I think that distinguishes Plant with Purpose is that we are a network of partner organizations, and the people we work with we consider to be our partners, not our projects. And so much of the initiative and so much of the ongoing work is either done by our partners or done within the communities by the community members we work with. And so one of the stories that really means a lot to me is the way we use savings groups. And first, I think what's important about that is we began using savings groups not at the initiative of Plant with Purpose, but the initiative of our Tanzanian partner. The director of our Tanzanian organization suggested it, experimented with it, and ultimately convinced me that it was a good idea. And so now we use savings groups in all 9 countries. But one of the times that I was really convinced this was right was when we were visiting a group in the Dominican Republic. And we'd been doing microfinance of one form or another for years. But in the early 2000s, when we shifted to a savings group model, um, it transformed our whole work. And I was sitting with a community and a woman in this community, 25 people in a savings group is usually,
And
was
before
telling,
you go on, could you just define savings group for those who might not know?
sure, they're groups of local people, usually women, who commit to saving their resources, and they use a very specific methodology in which they save a designated amount and then use that amount to make loans to the community. So,
Beautiful.
unlike traditional microcredit, the money isn't coming from us. We are not the lenders. The community members are their own lenders. And so, when our director in Tanzania first came up with it, he presented this idea to me. She says, "Oh, Scott, this is so beautiful. These women will bring 25 cents a week." And
Mm.
I kind of scoffed. I said, "Come on, how's that going to amount to anything? How's that going to amount to anything?" So there I was in the Dominican Republic, and this woman is telling her story. And they had started off with 40 cents a week, and they bring it together weekly and they put it in this metal box. You see, every lot of people use this system, and you see these metal boxes everywhere. But they
What, Mom? Okay. Bye. Sorry, my parents are leaving.
no problem.
Could we
They
start? Yeah, let's go back just a few seconds. So they bring 40 cents a week and they put it in this metal box.
right, and so this woman tells me they started with 40 cents a week, and they would bring it, and she said at the end of a year they share out, and so everybody gets their money back. And I never, when we first started, I didn't really get that. I thought, well, isn't that just going to decapitalize the system? But here's what happened. She said that they shared out, and they realized that in that room they had between them about $2,500 in cash, that they had never seen that amount of money before. Now they had a chance to reinvest and continue the group, and almost all groups do that. She said, but things changed because now everybody believed in the system. And so they
Yes.
found excuses. People stopped gambling so they could save. They stopped drinking so they could save. They every time they had a little bit of extra money, they'd bring it and save. And they had well over, I think it was $12,000 6 months into their second cycle. And here's the part that really stuck with me. She said, our whole idea of who we are as a community has changed. The only thing we feel bad about is we've had these resources all along and we never realized it. And that's an example to me of a community that is, it's not just financially better off. Their whole attitude, their whole outlook, their whole mindset is better off. And so that's the first story that comes to my mind of a time when a place was better off. I mean, that's only a part of the story. We
Right.
use what we call purpose groups, which include the savings group. They also include training and participatory training in regenerative agriculture and land restoration, and they include a spiritual component, which really partners with the local churches to bring people into the idea that work's a gift from God, that God has given us talents to use to change our own situation. And all the three of those things working together, we've seen amazing stories of transformation.
What I love about that is, I mean, they even said the only thing we grieve is that we weren't doing this sooner. I see like this poverty mindset, which is very common in especially places that have such thriving. I mean, 25 cents, bringing 25 cents, like you thought, what's that going to do? W- Not that transformation of vision and empowerment and the motivation from, no, I'm not going to buy the bubble gum or the the drink or whatever, because it puts it in such a different focus. So you're not only changing poverty, you're really changing attitude, like what they believe about themselves.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why one of our taglines is the people we work with are our partners, not our projects.
Yeah.
So much of the transformation, there's a big environmental component. And so much of the transformation we see of watersheds and of land is that's the activities and the initiative and the agency of the people we partner with. We like to say that 83 million trees have been planted. Those have been planted on a voluntary basis by local people who understand that that's going to transform both either their farm or their watershed and their stream. That's what we refer to it as community designed restoration. But it's, yeah, it comes from the community as they realize that they're not helpless.
Yes. And seeing people, the people piece, not the project piece. Because there has to be times where it would be easy to be impatient, or there's that cultural misunderstanding of what, my culture and my value might be this and theirs might be that. But to see them as people, you can almost overcome some of those cultural differences.
Absolutely, absolutely, and they need to. If we want this to be sustainable, if we want it to be lasting change and real change, it needs to come from the community. We can create infrastructure, or we can give things away, or and the there are literally thousands of studies that show that that has no lasting impact or very little lasting impact.
Yes. Yeah, I think sometimes when Americans go to different places and have with genuine desire for change, we um, we're almost doing it because it helps us or benefits us. It makes us feel good.
Hmm.
Um, and and to have something where it's genuinely will change a society, it's not going doing something and leaving. It's not going and giving our beliefs or our thoughts and leaving. It really is changing that mindset. And I guess the word empowerment comes to mind.
Right, right.
One question I have for you, and this comes from my own experience as an American who lived overseas, and especially when I lived overseas, people would come and they were very American. And what I mean by that is they just, when you are used to and seeing a different culture and then you see someone come in, it can be actually even offensive. What do you do to kind of help the for the people that are coming over to do like cross-cultural training or kind of help get them ready for caring for people in a different culture?
Well, I mean, in some ways, we sidestep that in that all of our work is done by local people. We have partners um, that in each of the 9 countries where we work um, that are from there. Maybe some of them have been educated in the West, but not necessarily. And those partner organizations, I mean, one of them we've worked with for 40 years, another for a couple others for at least 30 years. And so we have deep trust and deep understanding. And those organizations, they may have, a PhD or somebody with an MBA, local person in charge, but include people who might not even be fully literate, but are working in the communities and in the region they're from. So that's one way. And so as Americans, we're pretty behind the scenes. We serve about a little over 500,000 people right now. Most of them probably have no idea that there are Americans behind the scenes in this project, which is the way I like it. Now, not all of
Yes.
them. We take groups and and we'll be there, but oftentimes it's again in a learning posture. Um, we don't do short-term building trips or short-term mission trips. We do learning trips or vision trips. And, that has a couple of purposes, but one of them that I love is the fact that it gives local people a chance to show off what they've learned and to be the teachers and have us be in the learner's role.
Wow, I love that. What kind of infrastructure do you have in America supporting the work overseas?
We have a staff of about 45. We're mostly in well, about half in San Diego. That changed with the pandemic. Now we have people all over the country and in Canada. Um, and part of that is obviously fundraising, but another big part of that provides accountability structures, provides learning, facilitates information interchange, bilateral information exchange. For example, our agricultural curriculum and our spiritual curriculum were both designed with all of our partners' involvement. The agriculture curriculum, we brought all of our agronomists together to meet in Thailand originally and go through and determine what were the common pieces that everybody was teaching and develop an outline and then form working groups. And so we had agronomists from every one of our partners involved in writing that curriculum.
Wow, that's stupendous. Yeah. Where would you see as you the with the countries you're working with, are there countries that stand out that just really get agriculture?
Well, I I mean, it's hard to single out anyone like that. I mean, everybody's dealing with something different. For example, Haiti land tends to be very steep. Um, Parcel size tends to be very small, and there aren't a lot of markets. Dominican Republic, because of population density and because it's on the rainy side of the island, they're able to focus more on commercial markets. And so we're doing a lot with cacao and coffee there, whereas that wouldn't work in Haiti. There's no,
Yeah.
especially with the unrest there now, there's no way to get a cash crop to market. So they're really working to make sure that their communities have enough to eat. Similarly, Congo, a lot of it is focused on making sure people have enough to eat.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. The environment um is going to vary and that's going to show it. You said you've been doing this for a long time. And you mentioned on a different conversation that you're going to be stepping out of your current role and do more development. I'd love to hear your thoughts as something you're passionate, obviously, about what you're doing, and you want to end well. You want to prepare the people coming on. What does it? How would you define uh, finishing well before you transition to a different role?
Well, it's startling to realize how many organizations, and particularly nonprofits, um, don't um, don't go through transition well. And so many times that's because the founder or longtime leader doesn't want to let go.
Mm,
And I saw that recently referred to as the kind of the monarch mentality. The monarch only leaves office when he or she dies or there's a coup, right? I don't want to be that person. There's another essay I read recently. I think Mark Eden wrote it, in which he talks about your exit is part of your leadership. And
wow.
after um, being here this long, I'm not the founder, but after 33 years, so much of my imprint is on it, and I would hate to see it, either die or suffer because I didn't plan my exit well. So that's been really important. Um, that's been really important. I also realized, so when I started, we had one employee. We had an annual budget of $240,000, and we were working with 80 families in the Dominican Republic. Um, we have grown tremendously. We're serving, like I say, I think it's about 550,000 people. in 9 countries. Our budget is just over $15 million. I have been incredibly privileged to be a part of that growth, but I also realize I'm a generalist and
Mm.
there's a limit to my expertise. And we need to be a little bit more specialized in terms of organizational development and efficiency and operation, and maybe things that I don't have to give. Whereas I still feel like I have more to give in the area of storytelling and in the area of preserving relationships. Like I said, I've been blessed to be a part of this. I've been blessed to be given talents as a generalist, but which of those talents are the ones that I can still utilize while finding somebody better than me to take over in other areas?
That's such a I love the humility that that's portraying because you celebrated it was you and an employee and a small budget, relatively small budget, and now you're in 9 countries, multi-million dollar budget and multiple employees, you know huge celebration. And also you recognize that a different leader is going to have different strengths, and there
Right.
are times when that there's that healthiness of it. I've heard it called founder syndrome. um, and
Yes.
i I love because I absolutely love your statement, or whoever said it, but your exit is part of your leadership. If we would hold that, to say everything I'm doing is so that this is successful way after I'm gone.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, that takes that ego out and allows just almost more holes for other people to come in and give their input. So it's stable yet supple kind of idea.
And you know what, Marla, I have to tell you this. One of the most exciting things about the last 30 years is the fact that I never could have imagined the things that we were doing. You put together strategic plans and where do you want to be, but by bringing in really sharp people and by partnering locally, there are so many things that have been added that were far beyond my imagination. For example, a couple of the areas that we're really proud of is our ability to measure our impact. Well, I didn't even know that was a thing, and, and we've been doing it pretty effectively for almost 20 years. And how we got there is a whole nother story. But again, it was because of people who had skills that I didn't have, who could add to the mix. And another area is mapping. We do so much with GIS, which again is completely beyond my imagine. It was beyond my imagination. Today I see it, and so I love strategic planning. But as we look towards the future, I think the most exciting thing about the years ahead is we're going to be doing stuff that I can't imagine right now.
Yes, I love that. I have a leadership framework that starts with value, and then you build on the strategic plan and strong leadership and a strong team. And there's different elements to that, but starting with value, which is that purpose, what are your goals, then your strategic plan can always shift, right? But if you know why you're doing it, and that might shift a little bit over time because it gets bigger and whatnot, but um yeah, that having that North Star, strategic plans, just like you couldn't have planned the pandemic, and yet how has that shifted? Even though it was hard, there's probably some positives that came out of it in light of realizing that there's more diversity and location and things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, we have people that never could have figured out how to hire and bring to San Diego. We communicate with our partners more fluidly and more regularly than we ever did before. I mean, when I started, I would make three trips to the Dominican Republic a year and rely on a monthly fax with an update, And now we talk to our partners, multiple times a week, sometimes multiple times a day. It really is much more integrated. And so much of that is even just in the last 5 years as all of the, we all, and I'm including our partners in this, got over our challenges with internet and video yeah, yeah. I want to share
Yeah.
something with you because you talked about your leadership um, uh, schematic and starting with value. A big change for us came, part of that was from measuring our impact, but it came from realizing in the late, it sounds weird, in the late 1900s and early 2000s, realizing we defined ourselves not by our goals, but by our solutions. And I think
Wow.
that's a really common nonprofit malady. We
Mhm.
come up with a nonprofit that has a solution that's in search of a problem. And our solution happened to be agroforestry, mixing trees with agriculture. And so that, you remember the old adage for everything looks like a nail for a man with a hammer. Well, everything looked like an agroforestry problem for us. And realizing, no, we need to reverse this and figure out what are we trying to achieve. We're trying to heal relationships. We're trying to restore watersheds, reduce poverty, heal relationships between humans and God, humans and creation, etc. And work backwards from there. What's the best way to get there?
Yeah.
And so we develop, I mean, a theory of change. Probably a lot of people have heard the idea of a theory of change, but we then all of our partners working together really defined what are our assumptions, where are we trying to get to, what are our assumptions, what's going to take us there, and rethought what our activities were instead of starting with our activities and wondering where that's going to lead us. So that
Mhm.
theory of change is part of what unifies all, nine partners, 10 including the United States, including Planet Purpose. What unifies all 10 partners is we have a shared theory of change that we've developed together, but also the ultimate is our goal, not our activities.
Yeah. And glad you pointed that out because in nonprofits, yeah, we have this hammer. We're just looking for those nails,
Right,
and to completely do a 180 on that and turn it on its head allows for there to be growth because people don't want to be fixed, but they want solutions.
right,
And
right.
so, yeah, it allows that. Getting back to um, ending well, finishing well, handing over well, uh, which might be a better way because it sounds like there still is those relationships you'll keep in touch with and things. But what are some things that you're doing purposefully now to prepare for um, a different person in leadership?
Well, I'm among other things, I'm defining what are the pieces that I feel are critical to carry on with. Again, because how we get to the goal isn't critical, right? So if we stopped doing regenerative agriculture, okay, that would be a weird thing, but it's not the critical thing. The critical thing is the mission. And then I have three primary, what I call standing objectives that I think are really important. And one is that we're a Christian organization, that we maintain the centrality of our faith. But the second is that we are bridge builders. And I think in this very polarized moment, that's challenging. We're a place where everybody can come together,
Yes.
where whether climate change is your biggest issue or you don't think climate change is real, we can all unite behind restoring restoring rivers and decreasing poverty in DRC in Eastern Congo. So that's the second thing. And then the third is a little bit more amorphous, but that's maintaining the things that have made us successful as we grow and as we scale. And I think those are respect for our partners,
Hmm.
participatory decision-making process in which we don't think of ourselves as the headquarters. We think of ourselves as a facilitator of a multilateral organization and and um, maintaining the importance of relationships. Like I say, some of our relationships go back, you know, 30, 40 years, and eh, we do not want to become transactional. I think
Yes.
as you grow, it's so easy to become transactional about the way you do work. And so that part of what's made us successful is the deep, trusting relationships we have with one another and keeping that even as we grow.
Yeah, I love that. Um, that idea that everything I've heard you say has that people element to it, right? That even being a Christian organization, it's about that piece of Jesus that is loving and connecting and accepting.
Yeah,
It's not the polarizing and the um, we can agree to disagree on certain things, but boy, we can still come together and build and give dignity and give really life and reduce poverty and everything else. So I think it's the perfect example of we don't have to be polarized. And in fact, when we're not, when we choose to have enough of a similar value of cleaning up waterways and empowering locals, um, everybody wins.
right, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I'm I'm conscious of time. What would you like to tell, like, if younger leaders were coming and saying, I want to do this well, I want to be someone that doesn't burn out, that, has, you know, decades of history, what would you want to share with younger leaders?
Hmm. One of the things I say is don't do what I did. Um,
Yep.
no, like I say, I came to Plant with Purpose when we had one other employee and really had to learn a lot on my own. And as a result, my learning curve was pretty slow. I think there's a lot of value in working in a larger organization, a more established organization, seeing what you want to change, maybe, but at least learning from others. I think that's one place where I feel like I missed out, and
Hmm.
we grew very slowly in the first dozen years, very slowly. And I'm actually working on some materials around, what I wish I'd known then that I know now. And one of them was that it's really easy to, as a nonprofit leader, to live and work in a vacuum.
Yes.
And there are a lot of smart people out there who've tried to solve the same problems that we're trying to solve. And it might be that a young leader has the best solution ever tried, but chances are they've got things to learn. And so we participate in a couple of network organizations, Interaction and the Accord Network, in which we learn from each other. And I've been involved in both of those networks for 30 years. And really, a lot of our growth as an organization, our sophistication and professionalization has come from interacting and learning from those other
Yes.
organizations.
That's great. Yeah, I do agree with that. I never thought, because I entered into a nonprofit that was quite large, and there's, yeah, not have that support. And then I learned early on as an operations leader for Central Asia is I needed a coach. I needed someone to just say, let me get better at something. So that interaction with others and recognizing that sometimes my idea isn't the best idea. And a lot of times it's not any person's idea, it's what comes together and becomes a new idea.
Right, right. I think that applies as well to my successor or to other leaders we've hired. Is I expect changes to be made, and I don't have any issue with changes. But before you make changes, learn why we've chosen to do things the way we have. There's usually a reason. It's not that we just have never thought of doing it this other way. It's because we've learned a lesson or we've gotten there somehow. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. I think to younger people as well, there's a lot of good happening in the world. It's really easy right now, I think, in the United States to get discouraged.
Mhm.
And again, interacting with my partners in Congo, in Haiti, two places that right now are in the midst of civil wars,
Yes.
places that hearing their joy and how upbeat they are about what's being accomplished, it really helps me change my perspective. And I think that's so important.
Mm. Yeah, we can give joy, and there is hope. There is uh looking at the positives, and
Yeah,
not just fake positives, but no, we're seeing lives change. We're seeing
yeah,
people that can have joy, um, and being a piece of that is just wonderful.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. Here's an example too. For a long time, they're smallholder farmers have been seen. People who farm steep hillsides have been seen as a big environmental problem.
Hmm.
They have become the solution. They've become the heroes of the story. And so when we talk about 83 million trees being planted, that's being done by the people who were once vilified as
Wow.
the problem. They have become the solution. And that gets me really excited, especially when I realize, okay, we're working with a very relatively very small percentage of the
Yeah.
people we could be working with.
Yeah. Room for growth then.
Oh, absolutely. No, this is just the seed.
Yeah.
This,
Yeah.
this
I love that. Yeah. And you can do it multiple fold, just in abundance. So that, yeah, the concept of a seed really fits your organization, not just from planting things, but that there's, I guess, could see it go to so many more places and affect so many more people. So, Scott, thank you for this time. It wasn't long enough, but I also want to be conscious of our time. And thank you again. Is there any last thing, or if people want to get involved or donate, what how can people find you?
Yeah, we are plantwithpurpose.org. Should be fairly easy to find and would love to have people get involved. There are so many ways to get involved. Donations are obviously one of them. Those purpose groups, about $3,500 allows us to launch and maintain a purpose group. 25 families can literally transform their lives. Our whole concept of who we are as a community has changed. We can do that. We can replicate that over and over again, and that costs about $3,500. Also, very simple, is planting a tree costs $1, or sharing, and I know this is cliche, but sharing our social media, getting the word out there. We're a well-kept secret, and we've got really cool content on YouTube, on TikTok, you name it. So find it, share it, make others aware, because you never know. You might not be able to donate, but your friends' parents might. Who knows? But
Right.
that's the way it happens.
Great. I'll definitely put that link in the show notes, and so if people can find it there as well. So,
Sounds good.
Scott, thank you for your time. Just a delight. I have millions more questions for you, but we'll save that for another time.